for service on the battlefield and beyond. Bravo.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Liam Cogan. This is the 3 Bravo podcast, and today we're doing a veterans benefits breakdown. Today we're going to be going into the benefits for your dependents. So a lot of people have questions about how they're able to transfer things like the GIBill, or if their dependents are going to have access to the commissary and things like that when they get out. So it's a nuanced subject where a lot of things are going to apply specifically to your service category. So I'm not going to go over every single little detail, but I am going to tell you how to find out for every single question you may have for your benefit, for your dependent's benefits. And if you know a dependent or know of a dependent, friend of a friend or whatever, send this to them, because these things can be really confusing. And if you're not a military person as well, the task is extra daunting. Even for us, I was in the military for just shy of a decade. A lot of people do an entire career without feeling comfortable on base for a single second. There's just something about it kind of gets hammered into you that it is a fragile environment. So people don't often ask questions. It's the whole reason I do this podcast. So if you know anybody who's a dependent, if you have a dependent, send this to them. They'll take it more seriously than you do. And if you are a dependent, listen up. So the first one that people always get into is post 9/11 GIBill. So who gets to transfer that? How do I transfer that? And what does that look like? I can break it down very simply. So if you've had at least 6 years of service, you will be eligible to re-up to get this benefit. So if you've served for 6 years and you're thinking about, hey, I want to give college to my child or my unborn child, you need to serve 10 years. Now, if you want to give your GIBill to your spouse right away, you've served 6 years, you can go sign up for 4 more. And once you have that paperwork for 4, your spouse can immediately transfer that benefit to your spouse. You're doing that through DoD Mill Connect. So if you don't know what that portal is, the link will be below in the description section. And your dependent will have to basically go to DoD Mill Connect, make an account. So they'll have to be up to date in your actual DoD Mill Connect account. You'll have to have that dependent in there. So if it's your child and they're not in there yet, put them in there. If you got married in and you had a kid from another family, you have to put them in there, adopt them, get them approved. They have to be your dependent. Once they are in DoD Mill Connect, they'll go through VA Form 22-1990E, 1990 Echo, and that will get you basically enrolled in the program. And once you do that, also, like if you're like, oh man, I don't really know if this applies to me, just try. Go try for that, and they'll tell you. And then if you are certain that it applies to you and they come back to you and say, no, you aren't approved, then hit me back up and we'll work through it together. Or we'll just figure out what's going on. Maybe you aren't eligible for some reason. But to kind of wrap that up in a nutshell, 6 years in, you decide on 4 more years. If you make that decision, you sign the dotted line, you extend for 4 more years after 6 for a total of 10, you can immediately transfer that benefit to your spouse. Once you've served 10, you can transfer that benefit to a dependent like a child. So only your spouse can get it at 6. A kid can get it at 10. But you do have to either serve for 10, active duty serve for 10, or you have to sign up for 6, give your spouse the benefit, and then serve out that next 4. So anyway you shake it out, you're serving a decade in the greatest military on this planet of Earth. But for your dependents, if you're a dependent of, and this is where some of this nuance comes in, where a lot of people are curious. So if you're a dependent of someone who died due to a service-connected condition or illness, that can be while in active duty, or if they had a service-connected cancer, then they passed away, you now have a timeline in which you can use that education benefit. So this may open the door to a lot of people because of the PACT Act. So what the PACT Act is, it basically, under the Biden administration, they opened up a far wider reaching net of service support for veterans from like generally the Vietnam War era, Vietnam, Korea, and it covers and you know it that also covers GWOT era guys. It also covers Desert Storm era guys, but what it does is it opens up a larger swath of disability benefits for people who may have been overlooked, like Agent Orange stuff, burn pit stuff, things like that of that nature. Because a lot of veterans are getting cancer, and they're directly linked to those toxins being in their bodies. So if you have a parent who is approved for that PACT Act, you're probably going to be an older person as well. Maybe you're in your 40s, but if your parent recently opened up medical disability for cancer due to Agent Orange, or they passed away, there are a lot of ways you can maneuver within this sphere to get what your parent was owed if they are now passed away. So send me a message, but essentially all you need to know is if that doesn't apply to you and your parent passed away recently and they were a GWOT era veteran and you know, they served 10 years or whatever, if they didn't have to serve 10 years, excuse me, strike that from the record. If they had a service-connected condition and they died from it, your surviving spouse, dependent children may receive a monthly tax-free exemption, and there are many state programs to take school full-time. They just have to be under 18. The amount can vary for tax-free compensation as well, but it's starting somewhere around the ballpark of $1,612 a month. So your benefit is going to be different if your spouse passed away. It's more of a monthly compensation, but you can directly apply that towards your college degree. And then most states will also have follow-on programs where if you had a parent or a spouse die in the line of duty or due to a service-connected condition, you can access college for free. It's not every state. You're going to have to check for yourself. I will be doing podcasts on great benefits in each state coming up. So, you know, keep your eyes and ears peeled for the correct state that you're living in. However, through this podcast, I'm just going to hit the wave tops like I am. So if you're one of those people who applies to that benefit, you submit form. So it's going to be the same thing, DoD Mil Connect. DoD form 21P-534 Echo Zulu. And that's at va.gov. I'm sorry if it looks like I'm reading shit. I am. Okay. I can't remember all these numbers and forms. Nor would I want to. Nor would I want to be that person. So, and if you're the person who is, good for you. That's incredible. So, survivors, dependents, when you're looking at educational assistance programs or what they call DEA, dependent educational assistance, there are a couple different nuances to this. So if you're a dependent of someone who is, so you're going to have to ask your parent or your spouse of someone who is 100% totally and permanently disabled or died due to service-related conditions or service in service, you also can receive not only are you getting a monthly stipend, but you receive up to 45 months of education benefit. So you're looking at basically a degree. You can use that for college, apprenticeships, job training, and to apply for that. And like I say with everything, do not do the crazy amounts of hard work on your own. Let the VA sort that shit out. Like, don't freak out. Don't overuse ChatGPT. Listen to this. Get the right VA form. VA form 22-5490 at va.gov. And all these links are going to be in the bio. If that if that sounds like you, if your parent or spouse is 100% totally and permanently disabled and you want to go get some extra college education, apply. Use that form. That is for you. You can use it for a couple different things: college, apprenticeship, job training. That's all going to come down to an interview. You're going to talk about what you want to do exactly and how you're going to achieve that, where you're going to go to achieve that, and you'll basically deliberate with a representative. So moving outside of the college benefits, that's generally how it's going to shake out. So if you haven't hit that 10-year mark, you're not 100% disabled, or you're not dead, your spouse or your dependent are not really readily they're not going to be able to access your GI benefit unless you have extenuating circumstances or your state is really cool. Texas does some really cool things with their veterans and college programs. I mean, just as an example, and a lot of veterans are from Texas. Otherwise, you generally will not qualify to transfer that benefit. Pretty simple. Now, there can be special circumstances. And if you want to find out what those are, take any one of those forms that sounds the most like you and just ship it on in. Send it into them. Let them tell you why you aren't eligible. It's the greatest first step when dealing with bureaucracy. You got to slow your pace down, and you've got to let them do their dumbass work. You're going to need to be in the system. It's just the best way to attack any of these veterans benefits, any of these VA things, any of the bureaucracy is you just do it one time first without, you don't have to have the craziest amount of information, and then keep on coming back and making new attempts and learning new information. So moving on, we've got your commissary and exchange benefits. So if you want, without question, on every single base in all of America, your spouse and dependent to have commissary and exchange MWR facility, if you want all of the access, you're going to need to be retired or 100% disabled. That's like the bottom line. Now, there are certain outposts, there are certain bases where if you have a VHIC card, you yourself can use your commissary, your MWR, you can use the gym, you can use the exchange, but they're base dependent. So each base is like its own little state. And when it comes to these things, certain bases just have higher level of clearance or, like a different precedent. If you're on the East Coast, it's probably a little more strict. A lot more dudes have sticks in their asses there. If you're on the West Coast, it's probably a little more lax. I mean, that's ultra generalized, but you're going to have to do your own research, walk into the commissary exchange and gym near you and just ask. Nobody's going to give you the shaft just because they want to. And if they do, get in their face, go to the gym, exercise, be intimidating. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to find out your exact situation on your base. But if you are 100% disabled, a surviving spouse, or you got that retirement, you can use those exchange benefits, and you can your spouse and your dependents can. So that is pretty much bottom line. Now, if your dependent needs an ID card, understand this: when you get out, you're going to need to get an ID card. If you're 100% total and permanent, that'll happen once you get that rating, and then you'll have to go in, you'll have to get that 100% ID card, and it looks like a CAT card kind of turned on a horizontal axis. If you're a retiree, you get right out, you get that ID card on your way out. If you're going to do it with your VHIC card, I believe you can get a hard card version of a VHIC. Well, I know you can get a hard card version of that. I think you can get a better base version. It just depends on the installation. But if your dependents want to have access and they're not 100%, like you're 100%, you need to go get your spouse an ID card. If you're a veteran, you need to go, or a retiree, you need to get your spouse an ID card. And that is going to require DD form 1173 dependent ID card. Pretty simple form. You can print it out before you get to your base. What is it? It's not MEPS. It's God, somebody's going to know it. It's one of those stupid DEER's office. It's usually a DEER's office if you want to go off base, which is the chillest way to do it if you can manage. Or you got to find one on base. You got to have your VHIC and or your DD214, your paperwork, your medical paperwork. You have to make an appointment. You go in, and then you can get everything done with your spouse. So, or you might have to get your ID card, get it squared away, then come back, get your spouse. Then with your ID and her state ID, you have an appointment to go to DEER's on base, and then you get your ID card. Bit of a nut roll. However, if you want to be able to use the commissary local to you, I recommend it because the commissary is absolutely awesome. Every once in a while, me and my wife will go out, drive an hour and a half to Fallon just to use the commissary on base because the prices for meat are so good. So I recommend it if you can. From that, if you want to apply for your ID card, you get an eligibility letter from the VA, and then you apply at an ID card office. It says you can do it online, but again, it's the military. You may have to go in. I went in. It was very simple. I printed off my eligibility letter. I had all my information with me. I went in there. It took a couple seconds. Got it knocked out in Key West. Pretty sweet. The next thing we're going to look into is, I'm sorry. Here I am scrolling for things that I'm not able to find. I try to stay organized, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. So next, we want to look at CHAMPVA. So I've explained this before in my healthcare podcast episode, and I will put that in there. But CHAMPVA is something that I often get questions about, and it is a big deal, right? Health insurance for your family is a big deal, especially you got little kids and you can't certainly you get out of the military and maybe you can't afford it right away, but you can afford CHAMPVA. It's a little bit easier. Again, this is going to be 100% disabled veteran or deceased veteran benefit. If you're a retiree, you don't have to worry about that. You're going to go from TRICARE to TRICARE to a retiree TRICARE, and your family can kind of transmute with you in a very similar fashion. If you're going through the regular route and you become you're rated as 100% disabled, you're going to want to go through CHAMPVA. If you're going through a medical separation, you're going to need to go through CHAMPVA. You're not going to get TRICARE. CHAMPVA is going to cover a ton of things for your family. Again, I cover that in my podcast episode. But you got like prescriptions, hospitalizations, mental health services. There's some huge things that it covers. It doesn't cover absolutely everything. So some people will pair CHAMPVA with another insurance. However, if you listen, and I'm not telling you what to do. Don't make me liable for when you do something stupid. But if you live a relatively healthy life, CHAMPVA will be fine for your children and your family. Now, if you have some extenuating circumstances or you guys like to base jump with your kids, grow up and do your own research. However, I am telling you that if you're 100%, CHAMPVA is a great option, very cheap, great healthcare. It basically, it lives in the same wheelhouse as TRICARE. You just don't have the full ominous covered for anything. For CHAMPVA, you're going to be submitting VA Form 10-10D Delta to the VA Health Administration. You also have to have some other documents with it. And I give you the mail address as well in my healthcare podcast. So go check that out. Again, link in bio. Something that I do get questions about, VA home loan benefits for surviving spouses. The VA home loan is awesome. You get the zero down. You get, left and right lateral limits of around $700,000 to $750,000 of this benefit. So, zero down payment for a $750,000 house. You're saving a lot of money on the front end. Now, you're not eliminating that cost from the cost of the home, but you will have access to more. So I also have a VA home loan podcast if you want to check that out. Link will also be in the description. But if you are a surviving spouse of a veteran who has died, or a military service member who has died because of service-connected issues or while active duty service, you can use the VA home loan. Now, your stipulation here is that you cannot get remarried. The second you get remarried, that shit is gone. I'm going to have to do some extra research on if you have the home and then you get married, do they make you, well, I want to say I'm sure they wouldn't make you refinance with another bank, but they might. It's kind of a no shitter with the military. So I would look into that if that is you, and just make sure you're double covered. Or how about this? I'll cover that in the description. And that's really going to cover it for it, so I don't make this episode wildly long. I like to do these things in 15 minutes. I definitely try to keep it under 20. If you think of another big dependent transfer of benefit or a dependent benefit, I'm going to delve more into this concept in our state by state benefit breakdown, because there are just the dependent benefit really flourishes in the state world. As far as your federal benefits, that's going to be the long and short. Looking at base access, VA home loan, GIBill, those are the big ones, and CHAMPVA. If you have another screaming federal benefit, send it to me. I will always explore anything. And as always, I'm Liam Cogan. This was 3 Bravo. This was the benefits breakdown of your dependent transfer benefits. See you guys next time.